Hi, this is Ed Rising, and welcome to Ed's Pop-O-Matic Podcast, a retro pop culture podcast, where everything retro beats anew if you keep it in your heart. This is our first show of 2025, so I wish everyone Happy New Year.
Happy New
Uh,
Year.
I have two wonderful guests with me today, old friends, Fred Velez
Hi,
and Mark
guys.
Arnold. Hi, guys. How we doing?
We're
Good.
doing okay, thank you.
Good. I'm glad you guys are here. We I had wanted to do a series of podcasts on the Osmonds for some time now, and I think I'm gonna have to move that up in the agenda now. Right now, we're here tonight because of the passing of Wayne Osmond, who was a big part of the Osmond Brothers groups from the 60s and 70s, and his later career with and without the group, and just in general talk about the Osmonds, uh, and our memories of their music and what they meant to us, etc., and so forth.
All right.
Hope that everyone is listening and watching. Um, you'll note that our podcast is available on YouTube. It's available on my YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and you type in Ed Rising, you should be able to find our chats and so forth. And you can also find us on Spotify and um, Apple Music and other streaming services. And so hopefully we'll be doing a lot more of these during the course of the year. So let's get started. Mark Arnold has a wonderful background, and so he must be very aware of getting ready to talk about the Osmonds.
Yes.
And so, Mark, could you share with us your background, how you became an Osmonds fan, or if you became an Osmonds fan, or preferred the
Well,
Jackson Five, or whatever?
well, I mean, I became a Jackson 5 fan first. It was probably the same way, the TV show that Rankin Bass did the year before. And this is 1971, so I was age of 4. Uh, and they had the cutout records on Honeycomb and all that sort of thing. Um, and
Honeycomb was the cereal.
yeah, well, it's
On
still
when
around.
you get your cereal boxes, on the back of the cereal boxes, they had record offers and
Right.
for the pop groups
Well,
of
you
the
could
day.
actually clip them off the back of the
Oh
cover,
man,
it's
sure.
yeah, so
How's the
something they could return to since vinyl's made a big comeback. But anyway, the next year, the Osmonds appeared and with a cartoon show, and I had no idea who these guys were. I didn't know who the Jackson Five were before the cartoon, but their One Bad Apple theme song was pretty catchy, and it sounded like the Jackson Five, so I said, okay,
Yeah.
I'll watch this too. Um, I didn't get. I mean, I know their names, but the cartoon. I know the red shirt one there is Donnie, and I know the blonde one is Jimmy. But the other three, I hate to say, uh, Wayne Allen and wait, was it Wayne Allen and
And Jay,
Merrill and Jay? Wayne
yeah,
Allen, Merrill, and Jay. There we go. Yeah, they're kind of interchangeable at least at that time to me. They kind of came out later when they became kind of a country act in the 90s. But it's like back then, other than Donnie, and Jimmy, they were just the other ones on the show. but
right.
um but then I found out they're like real people, and this is when they started having big hits. So you hear them on the radio with Wild Horses and Yo-Yo and all those different hits.
Yeah,
And then I was a big fan of the Donnie and Marie show in the late 70s, 76 to
yeah,
79. I used to watch it religiously.
right.
Anyway,
Sure.
not
We
Mormon,
all
but yeah.
did.
Anyway. But yeah, and so I've always kind of followed their careers off and on. I kind of wondered why they stopped recording as a group at times, and they all had their various comebacks and everything. And in recent times, when Wayne passed away, I decided just to kind of refresh my memory about each one. And I didn't know, like, he had number of strokes, and one of the other brothers, I forget which one, you can probably correct me, has MS, and his son does too, and it's like deafness runs through the family, and it's like, wow, Donnie and Marie are about the only one pretty much unscathed on health issues, which is really kind
Yeah,
of strange, because I was wondering, how come I never hear about them anymore? Why don't they tour anymore? And I
right.
remember I think it was 2019, Marie had the Osmond brothers on the talk, and she kept touting it. It's the last appearance, and I hadn't seen them in forever. And they come
Yeah.
out, and two of them are like in wheelchairs or something like that, and that's like, whoa, oh crap, they got
Yeah, we
old.
got old, right? You forget,
Yeah,
realize how much we've gotten older.
yeah, but they're not much older than me. And I said,
I
because I
know,
mean,
I
I
know.
expect to be like in their 80s and 90s in wheelchairs, not in their 60s and
Not in their
70s. And
60s and
like,
70s. No.
so that's my exposure, and I have like things like Osmond Mania, which is like a great CD if you don't have that, and I have the complete Osmond Family Illustrated discography, which is a great book
Wow.
if you don't
That's
have
good.
that.
Let's get back to that a little bit later because I
Okay,
definitely would like to see some of that because that's something that I want to talk about. I
sure.
want to welcome Daniel Coston to the chat. Daniel, how are you?
Very good, sir. Good to see you. Glad to be here for all things Osmonds.
It's nice to see
Um,
you, and nice to see you, and having sort of a plastic EP reunion group here.
that's
You
right.
know, it's nice seeing some old faces and friends. And how have you been, Daniel?
Very good. Thank you. Just kind of like a rare moment evening where I'm not working to come talk some music. It's been a very busy year. As I mentioned, I'll later on I'll tout some of
We'll
the
get into all that, sure.
yeah, tout some of the records I've been producing. But no, just really looking forward to chatting with you guys and talking about some music.
That's great. That's great. Daniel, can you tell me a little bit about your background regarding the Osmonds and what you liked or what you didn't like, or
I will be honest. I've been a little bit of a music snob. I have always was more of a Monkees fan.
oh
New
no.
records. So I knew the Osmonds hits, but as growing up, the Osmonds were everywhere, and I think that kind of made me want to seek out other things. But I actually was listening a good bit to their records ahead of this podcast, and was really kind of saying, okay, I need to listen to this with fresh ears. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys about these records and the Osmonds, and obviously sorry to see that Wayne has left us, but the music lives
Yes.
forever, and that's what we take with us as we go forth in this life.
Yeah. Okay. And Fred, as far as Wayne is concerned, as Mark pointed out, he'd had a couple of strokes, and it's interesting with by the Osmonds because one of the things that is so prominent in their music and in their the way that what they have put out over the course of the year, as far as they've demonstrated, is they're very much religious oriented people.
Right.
And to have the kind of faith that they have and the strength within themselves to continue to get through all the things they do. I am, I imagine you have similar feelings about those kinds of things, even if it's not necessarily the same faith.
Right. Well, I'm first belated Happy New Year to everybody and belated Christmas. And Mark, that's Johnny in green behind you.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, that's Donnie.
Oh, okay. So who's that? That's probably.
That's probably Alan or
Oh,
Merrill.
okay. Okay.
And
Anyway.
Jimmy's the blonde.
Yeah, Jimmy's the only one I knew for sure. Okay, they cut off when I put this up. It cut off
Right.
Donnie. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway,
Thank you for correcting me.
being the oldest person here, I guess, um, I've I've been aware of the Osmond Brothers much longer. I remember their appearances as a barbershop band, as a barbershop group with the Andy Williams show and appearing on the Jerry Lewis show back in the late 60s. And it was towards the beginning of the 70s that they started to become a pop bubblegum band and they started following like the Jackson Five. And you could, in fact, One Bad Apple was actually, I believe was written for the Jackson Five. They turned it down, but they gave it to the Osmonds, and it became their first major hit. And and they had several hits after that, like Yo Yo and a few others. And they were mostly bubblegum at the time, like the Jackson Five were like early soul bubblegum. And they had their own cartoon show also produced by Rankin Bass. Only the difference with the Jackson Five, they had actors doing the Jackson Five voices, but for the Osmonds, they had the real Osmonds doing their own voices, which was, and this follows the Beatle cartoons from the 1960s, in which they based
Yeah.
the cartoon on real people, so that, so
And they weren't King of Futures. They were Raskin and Baskin. What was it?
right,
Raskin and
Baskin and Robbins.
thank you, Baskin and Robbins. Did Baskin and Robbins make the Osmonds and the Jackson Five?
yes, yes, the Kingfishers was the Beatles, and Rankin Bass was the Osmonds and the Jackson Five.
Right.
So
Thank you for correcting me. It's Rankin Bass were the producers of both the Jacksons and the Osmond show.
right,
Thank you.
the same people that gave us Rudolph and Frosty and all those other
Oh,
great things.
classics, man.
And one of my favorite Halloween movies, Mad Monster Party. So anyway, getting back on track. I followed the Jacksons and not the Jacksons, excuse me, the Osmonds. I followed the Jacksons too. But my sister Cookie was a huge Osmond fan and used to get the records and things like that.
Yeah.
And also Marie Osmond's records too. And my wife Linda and her sister Lois were also big Osmond fans. Um, and I used to follow the Donnie Marie show. The first season was good. It started getting more silly towards the end and everything, and I think that kind of killed them as a serious rock band because that's the thing about the Osmonds. They branched from barbershop to pop to bubblegum to rock, and then later on went to progressive to country and middle of the road and stuff like that. And they didn't stay in one specific style. In fact, a lot of the rock bands actually who were not snobs admired the Osmonds. I mean, Led Zeppelin liked them.
Right.
When they toured in England, I think they played Earl's Court. They actually used the Led Zeppelin sound equipment. They were allowed to use that, and they were actually backstage during some of the Led Zeppelin concerts. There was a
Yeah.
rumor for years that the Led Zeppelin had the Osmonds come on stage to sing along on "Stairway to Heaven," but that's been proven. That hasn't been
Oh, that
proven.
would have been that. I could hear them doing that. Yeah.
But they
Those
were
harmonies.
backstage.
Yeah.
They were backstage hanging
Yeah.
out with kids of Led Zeppelin. And
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne is a big fan of the Osmonds. In fact, they even appeared in a commercial that Ozzy did for
Osmond and Donny Osmond did something together, I think. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So you can look it up. Look up Ozzy Osbourne and Donnie and Marie, and you'll find them all
Yeah.
together. But
Yeah.
one of Ozzy Osbourne's most favorite heavy metal songs is "Crazy Horses" by the Osmonds.
It's a great song.
It's a
And the thing
fantastic.
is, with the Osmonds, then you've touched
Exactly.
on a lot of it, Fred, is
Mhm.
that they were put in a very strange situation as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when you sign on with a producer or you sign on with a record company, you can be pigeonholed into doing one thing.
Right.
You're gonna be the next pop stars, the next bubblegum act,
Right.
and you're gonna be fed material, and you're gonna do this material, and that's it. And I think what they ended up doing is that first of all, the Osmonds wrote a lot of their own stuff,
That's
and
right.
similar to the Monkees, after the first one or two releases, they started writing much more of their own material,
Mhm.
and they developed that way. And I think a lot of people back in the day gave the Monkees a lot of flack and said, well, they didn't really write the songs. They're just being given credit for it or whatever. They tried to throw it away because they didn't appreciate what the Monkees were doing. And similarly with the Osmonds, because the Osmonds were a bubblegum group, right? But
Right.
they had all this talent. I mean, if you look up the albums, you'll see the Osmond, the Plan, for instance, which I'd like to get into on another podcast in greater detail. But that entire album is written by the Osmond brothers,
Mhm.
Right.
and so they were legitimate.
They
And I
were.
think I think it was difficult for them to be legitimate because by the same time they're singing backup to Donnie's little bubblegum hits,
Mhm.
and then they're eventually working uh, on the Donnie and Marie show. Mark, can you go back to me a little bit more on the Donnie and Marie show memories? Because there are a couple of things that they did that were ridiculously silly.
Well,
Do you
just
have
thinking about it on the top of my head, I remember a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll that they always did, the little sing along thing. The Osmond brothers, with and without Donnie, tended to show up on the show, and Jimmy tended to show up. Paul Lynde tended to show up a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
he was contractually obligated.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was.
I just thought he liked the Osmonds.
As long as I get the paycheck and the zeros are in the right
Very
spot.
good, Mark.
um, and then they had their ice vanities. That's what I remember is the ice skating rink. And
Ice
then
vanities, yeah.
the Brady Bunch hour spun off, and they had a swimming pool. It's kind of like, I remember Donnie doing Captain Purple. The muscle purple muscle thing. He always was
Yeah.
just wearing purple socks long before Prince. Uh, what else was on that show? Um, but they did one thing I remember really well. You mentioned the plan. They did some serious performances. You could consider them music videos of some of the songs because when these albums came out, they didn't necessarily do music videos. But later, just by virtue of performing them on the show, I don't know if they're live or lip syncing. I can't remember, but regardless, yeah, that's sometimes the only video record of them performing a particular song. So it's a
Yeah.
good time capsule for that. I wish, especially now, they had the gumption to re-release all that stuff. There might be rights issues with all the performers, but you never know. Certainly the cartoon should be released. I know Donnie is probably embarrassed by it, but come on, Donnie, you're
Well,
I
from what I
think
understand about the Donnie and Marie show, Donnie Osmond had worked feverishly to re-edit a lot of the Donnie and Marie show, and he put out DVDs on the Donnie and Marie show because I guess they controlled that because it was from their home studio.
yeah,
And so he was able to do that some years ago. But as far as their overall music, it hasn't been re-released in quite a few years.
yeah.
And it would be nice to see something come out of their albums re-released, maybe some additional archive editions, with things like that, or actual real concerts or things like that. I'm sure a lot of that stuff has got to exist somewhere in the
Yeah.
archives of Curb Studios or I've MGM or whatever the studio, whatever the last label is that owns their material.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to mention also regarding the Donnie and Marie show, one of the things that was difficult for the Osmond brothers, and again I refer to Alan, Wayne, Merrill, and Jay, is they were essentially, other than Alan, who was like the lead producer, the others were sort of relegated to being in the background somewhere,
well,
wearing weird costumes and stuff like that. It was weird. Must have been weird for them. Fred?
well, the thing is that as a band, especially during the rock period, they were amazing. There is live footage of them, and it's incredible, especially when you see him performing Crazy Horses, and Donnie's doing that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The keyboard is amazing, and the one playing the lead guitar is Wayne. So
He is
and he
he was
does
the
a
lead guitarist,
fantastic,
right?
and the lead
Thank you,
singer,
Fred.
the lead singer is Jay, and they were just an amazing band live. And you listen, I got this record, the the Osmonds Live
The Osmond is alive.
1970,
Okay.
and it's like Beatlemania when you hear this. Reading and everything. There's another live album from around the same period or later where they include Crazy Horses. This album doesn't have Crazy Horses, but however, this CD does. Osmond's Greatest Hits. There's about 10. I think Mark's CD has more songs,
Yeah, mine
like two CDs,
has.
I think.
This is like the ultimate. It has
It's everything. Yeah.
28 songs on it.
Got it. And I got this for my wife Linda last year for
Oh,
Christmas.
that's nice.
One of
Yeah.
Donnie's.
Remember that album?
Yeah, this is what this is called, Alone Together.
Does that one have a photo in it, or is it the other one that has the photo, the
I
earlier one?
don't know. This has the 12th of Never, which was a hit for him.
Oh, okay.
I
But I
think
think
I have the Donny Osmond album.
I think it's the earlier album that has
It's a blue
a
album.
free photo in it or
It's like
something.
it
Yeah.
was like a blue cover, blue writing, but like a black cover or a dark cover,
Something
and a
like that.
picture of
Yeah.
him. And I think there was
Similar,
a photo in that album
it's
back
similar
in
to the cover of
1970, 71.
it's similar to the cover of one of Bobby Sherman's first albums, I think.
Ah, Bobby Sherman.
Yes. And even though Bobby Sherman stayed pretty much in his little circle,
Little cubby hole, yeah.
he was comfortable that way. So who's going to say no to him? But the Osmonds, I give them a lot of credit as a band because they played their own instruments, they wrote their own songs, they sang
Right,
everything on there. So um, they're a band that deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They probably won't get it because they're too associated with the bubblegum image.
right.
It's a shame,
But I
but
think there should be a bubblegum division
well,
of
there's a
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just like there's a soul division, or there's a this division or that division.
there is
Um,
there is a pop music Hall of Fame, which the Monkees did get into,
mhm.
you know. So, but
The
And
thing, the thing, the thing that I'm sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
I really, in reading up ahead of this episode, I was really struck by the parallels between the Monkees and the Osmonds. It's like, they do the first two albums with Rick Hall in Muscle Shoals, by the way. Think about
mhm,
what's coming out of Muscle Shoals in the 70s, including the Osmonds. And
mhm.
then by the third album, they go, no, we don't really like this material. So they write and record their own material. Who does that sound like?
Yeah,
So,
Exactly.
exactly.
and then they find their footing even further on the fourth
Right,
album. What does that sound like? Now, if you're going
Right.
to tell
well,
me
the funny
that,
thing is, Daniel, is the album that came after, not Head, came after, now you got the Monkeys in my head, came after, The
Crazy Horses.
Plan was, I think it was called Love Me for a Reason.
Right.
And that album has no songs written by the Osmonds. So
Mhm.
it's like
Like the
Mike
Monkeys
Curb
present.
or whoever the producer was like, you know what? Plan was okay for you as far as an artistic choice was concerned, but it was not a commercial success. So you're gonna sing what we're gonna make you sing, So
Here's
Now,
a here's an
if you're going to
interesting
you're
here's an
going to tell me
interesting
that if you're going to tell me that the Head is kind of a treatise on Mormonism, that would make more sense than some of
no,
the explanations
it
of
could
Head
mean
I've ever
anything,
read.
no
Who
no
There
knows
no
you
what
go.
Head was
Yeah.
about?
no. What I was going to say is that when they were working on Crazy Horses, they presented it to the record company. They said, "Are you guys kidding? Doesn't sound anything like the Osmonds." Says exactly, and
Right,
they put it out, and it was a huge hit, and because they had the clout of the hit records, they were able to do it that way. So I
yeah,
give them a lot of credit for that. That they stuck
right.
by their guns, and I think the sequence, the chronology goes that they did phase three,
Mhm.
which they started getting more heavy, then Crazy Horses, then The Plan. I
Mhm.
believe.
Crazy Horse is a solid album, a
Uh-huh.
really good album. And if like you said, they were really moving into the rock area because it's got some really heavy rock clicks in there. As far as guitar licks are concerned, some of the subject matter is still boy girl for the most part, but it's a lot heavier, I think.
Hmm.
And then of course they again they being very strong members of the Mormon faith, they write an album based around that, and like which I guess was rock radio was not going to accept, or even pop radio maybe there was some pushback. I mean, George Harrison was successful with My Sweet Lord and some of his other spiritual stuff, but even there was backlash against him eventually, you know
Right.
and it's very difficult when you are told that you're a bubblegum artist because your songs don't mean anything. Then you write something that is as deeply personal as The Plan was, and then to have that not necessarily gain commercial success until many years later, really, when people begin to look at it and say, "Wow, this is a very interesting record," or this has substance to it.
Now,
And
it's interesting that Donny Osmond, after the whole thing with Donnie Marie went down, he tried to continue as a solo artist. He was having difficulty because of the past teeny bopper image.
right,
And mid 80s, he put out a record called, I think, Soldier of Love, I think.
Right. Soldier of Love.
And he knew that record companies would see Donny Osmond on the label, and they said, "Oh, we're not going to play this." So he had the record company release it without a name on it, uh, just whatever, just an anonymous. And
Right.
the record company liked it. They played it on the radio. I mean, on the radio stations liked it. They played it on the stations. They got a lot of positive feedback, and they wanted to know who the singer was, and was revealed. They couldn't believe it,
Yeah.
and it became a hit for him. And for a while, he wanted to stay in a rock period, but then he realized that a lot of his older fans still wanted him to be sort of that Downey from back then. So he sort of juggled it a little bit of the new stuff he was doing and
A little bit country?
older.
No, no, just kidding.
No, no, well, some of that, but you know what I mean. He juggled.
He
He
jockeyed that. He jockeyed his Broadway ambitions. He worked in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat,
and
and which was
also
a huge thing. And then later on, he would have even greater Broadway success. So yeah, they've all managed to do their own thing, you know.
Also, if you go
And
to Mulan, the original Mulan cartoon, he's
yes,
the voice of the male lead.
he's
He-
the Marine or whatever you want to call him.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
The he's the lead. He's the lead.
I'll make a man out of you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So
All right.
yeah,
Which is
he
Very
my
good.
favorite song on that soundtrack, actually.
Great song. Great song.
so you gotta give again Donny Osmond a lot of credit for continuing as an artist. And then he finally came to terms with his old image, so he's able to
Yeah.
balance the two. And I had the opportunity to see him in concert in 2011, the same year of the last Monkeys tour with Davey,
Yeah.
and with my wife Linda. And she was thrilled to be there, and we had a great time. We saw him at Westbury Music Fair, and he was so much fun. And he did a tribute to his brothers. He had a video screens on the stage in which he harmonized with his brothers
Oh, that's nice.
on there, which was very nice. And he did a
Yeah.
short thing on it with Marie. So it was a nice evening. We had a fun time, and
Yeah.
my admiration for Donny Osmond went up tenfold that night.
Yeah. Well, two quick stories about Donnie. So
Mhm.
Donnie did something that you just expressed when I saw him in concert this summer. So he has this bit where he has the video of his brothers, and they all do a duet together. I forget what song it was. Might have
Mhm.
been "Love Me for a Reason," which is again a lovely moment. But he has a sense of humor about himself, and I think he still kind of likes the idea of being the pop star, you know. So this little story about him being in an elevator with a mother and her daughter, and her daughter is dressed up like the Mulan character or something like that, or she has the Mulan dress or whatever. And so, so the girl is getting off the elevator, and as she's getting off the elevator, he says, "I'll make a man out of you," and it's like the girl's eyes just flip out, and it's like, I could just imagine it being like with this teenage girls flipping out of a Donny Osmond 50 years later, it's just cracking me the hell up, funny stuff. But
I got to tell a funny story. The night I saw Johnny Osmond at Westbury, um, me and Linda had decent seats, and there was a woman uh, in the music fair that had a oops, sorry about that, had a front row seat, and she was obviously drunk. And she was, "Oh, Donnie, Donnie, I love you, Donnie, Donnie." And she like he shook hands with her and she wouldn't let go. And finally the security had to grab her and get her out of there.
yeah, some of these fans could be a little bit wacko, but
They're a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, I guess.
it's their night out though. You got to look at it that way too. I get
Right.
really frustrated with some of these fans sometimes, but what you're gonna do? So anyway, but and it's sad for them to lose a brother.
I know.
It's just
Sad.
it's heartbreaking for them at this moment. So my thoughts are with the Osmonds and the family, all the family, and help them get through all of this together,
Yeah,
because
I
that's
think
one thing they've always done. They've always been able to be together with one another, whether it was singing together, whether it may not have been the direction they wanted to do, but they did it because it was their family obligation, and they did it out of love. I mean, part of who they are, and it's a it's a beautiful thing, really, when you think about it. I think a lot of people get turned off by the Osmonds because of the goody-goody aspect of their lives. But what the hell is wrong with being good people and loving people and
Yeah.
God-fearing people and whatever, It's just anyway,
Yeah.
I've always admired them. I've always enjoyed their music and you know, and this hurts as we get older, we start to lose the people that are
Yeah.
closer to our generation,
Mhm.
Right.
and
Well,
that's hard to accept.
this is the first brother because
Yeah,
previously it was just the parents that died. I remember,
yeah,
was it like a decade ago the dad died or something? It might have been a little longer, and they were all scheduled to be on Oprah Winfrey with the dad, and then he
yeah.
passed away. But then they decided to do it anyway, which I
They
thought was
did.
great.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw the remember when Donnie Marie had a talk show for a
yeah,
while,
Yes.
and they had the whole family, including the dad and the mom,
hmm
with them, and it was like the first time the whole family was there, including the two brothers that weren't performers who were deaf.
Tom and Verl. Yeah,
Right, and it was Alan who had MS, I believe.
that's correct. Yes.
He was in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
uh, but he got up to sing with them, I believe. It was like one of the last times he performed with his brothers.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got that was an amazing family.
Well, it's funny. I saw an Andy Williams Christmas special. I found it on YouTube from 1993. That's what they said it was. And the Osmond brothers, five of them, were on stage standing singing together, including Alan. So I
Mhm.
guess maybe he was able to still walk around or whatever, but he wasn't doing any fancy dancing steps or anything like that. But it was nice to see Alan up and doing stuff, and the MS hit for him, and you know was debilitating for a while, and still, I'm sure it's still debilitating, but I think he's improved or to some degree over the course of time. He was able to, I guess, he's able to do some things for himself. Um, I really don't know. I'm sorry, I'm babbling.
That's all right.
Um, but anyway, I wish the best for the Osmond family.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts about the Osmonds, Daniel?
I would say that anytime someone like a member of the Osmond family, any group passes away, it's a marking of time. We just saw that with Liam with One Direction. It's a reminder
Yeah,
that we don't
right.
live forever. Thankfully, the music and what we create lives forever, but sadly, we do not always do that. And I'm glad he's no longer in pain. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a reminder that yeah, those these are different times that we live in now, but thankfully, what we've created lives on. So, yeah, and to your point about, yeah, I mean, even, fans like me, it's kind of kept, their images kind of kept me away from listening to the music. But, what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? And
that's right, man.
I
Hey, I
gotta leave
dig
that.
that.
Yeah.
I
What's
dig
wrong with
that.
that? I'd like to know.
Hey,
Mhm,
hey, hey.
mhm.
Cool.
Similarly, and since we keep comparing them to Jacksons and Jackson 5, we lost Tito pretty recently,
Right,
probably a year ago. So
right.
Tito and Michael are gone, so
Yep, it's very strange.
So
It's
one of
strange
the
to be this much older. I don't feel all that much older, but I guess that's the way it is.
one
So
of
what
my
I'm going to do is I'm going to go around
oh
the group here, ask everybody to just share a little bit about where they are, what they're doing, what's going on. Mark, I'll introduce you last, all right? And Fred, can you start?
sure. Well, I'm still in there swinging, just waving my monkey flag, and I still got my books. A little bit me, a little bit you. The monkeys from a fan's perspective, and a little bit me, a little bit you too. The monkeys from international fan perspectives. You can get them on Amazon, on Kindle and print, and if you want autographed copies, you can get them on my webpage, Freddie. If you can see that, Freddie
That's
Pop dot word.
FreddyPopWordPress.com.
Yeah, freddiePop.wordpress.com if you want signed copies. And
Excellent.
I'm still hanging in there. I'm hoping to work on a new project. I've been a little stuck, so keep me in prayer that I get going on it. I really want to get this thing started. I'm keeping it a secret for now. Only a few people know
Okay.
what it is, but just keep me just say, Fred, where is it? Okay,
Okay, well, Fred, get to work on it
I will.
and let us know what's happening. Okay, and you stay
I will.
well. Okay, Daniel. Daniel, as most of my friends know, is a well-known photographer. He does a lot of work around Charlotte, North Carolina, and various involvements there with the Tosca Music Group and other stuff like that. And he's producing music. And to tell you all about it is the man himself, Mr. Daniel Coston. Yeah.
Well, hello, hello, hello. Good to see you guys again. Happy New Year. As he mentioned, I've been producing records the last few years, and I'm happy to tell you guys that a reissue of the Becky's 1976 album with demos that have been in my collection for 20 years will be officially announced next week by Omnivore Recordings for release on February 28th. Look for announcements on January 15th. This is called Good to Know, the Becky's Story. And it really fills in the story of the Beckys, which was Michael Brown's last project. It kind of capped his 10 years, starting with the Left Bank. I wrote the liner notes for it, a lot of new information, and the remastering that the Omnivore has done for both the demos and the album sounds astounding. So I can't wait for you to hear that. Since we're all friends here, I will tell you guys, and there's more news about this coming soon. I have spent the last 4 months working in the Chad and Jeremy archives. This has been amazing. So I basically had I was given the chance to go through Chad's archives. And we have found so much. You will not believe this. This has been amazing and it is ongoing. So I'm hoping Jeremy will be able to tell the world more soon. But stay tuned. This is really something. I also produced a new record by Todd Johnson called Late Night Love Therapy, which is an artist here in Charlotte. It's really 3 records in one. It's rock, soul, and more. I'm really proud of it. And I will mention, since you mentioned Tosco, I'll mention Tosco, the Fab Fest, which will be coming back to Charlotte, I believe, in October. Please check that out. I am back working with a couple of bands. My friends in the Mayflies USA are releasing their first single in 25 years this week, and I did photos for the record, so I'm really excited about that. And there's always more going on, so stay tuned. DanielCoston.com, at Daniel Coston Photos, where you can see my photos of the Avett brothers from this week's New Year's Eve shows, and stay tuned.
You got a lot going on. Take a deep breath, Daniel, please. But we'll have to do a couple of podcasts for you for the upcoming Becky's album and some of these other projects. So let's keep in touch on that, okay?
I'd love to, seriously. Good to see you, man.
Cool. Now, the last but not least is another very busy gentleman, my friend Mark Arnold here. And Mark did 2 books last year.
No, I did 4.
4 books. So he can tell you
I'll go through it,
because I don't know.
Before I do that, I actually have questions of both Fred and Daniel. Fred, is your new project music related?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know. I won't go dig further. And then Daniel, what's the update on the Circle since their album?
I'm glad you mentioned. So the Circle's new album, Revival, their first album in 57 years, came out in March on Big Stir Records, bigstirrecords.com. We have 3 singles out, which I also did the artwork for the singles. I'm really proud of. We are now gearing towards their 60th anniversary next year. And actually, one of the things I proposed literally today, as we're discussing this, where they do a set where they do their set opening for the Beatles in 1966. Not only do we have, there is some audio component of this, which you can hear on YouTube if you search, but I actually have their set list from 1966, which, by the way, and this was mind-blowing to me when I discovered this, their set closer was Stay by Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs. And Maurice, who passed away this past year, was a good friend of mine. I discovered that on stage at Fab Fest one day. It was like Don Daneman said, "Oh yeah, Stay was our set closer." And I just I had to remind myself not to curse. It was just like, the heck you say. So, but we have the set list that they did, and they're in discussions now where you can go out and see them, and hopefully in the next year or 2 and see the set that they would have done opening for the Beatles in 1966. So, thecircle.com, bigstirrecords.com, and we are discussing some new projects. I did a lengthy interview with Don last year, where we discussed a lot of the Circle history and learned a lot of things that are still not known to the public. And I would like to continue that. So Don, if you're watching this, hi. And I will be in touch. So yeah, so that's what's going on with that.
All right, cool. Now I'll brag about myself. Okay, so Yes, I did. I did. Four books came out, but it's not like I just wrote them all last year. It's just this is the culmination of the whole pandemic and everything else. Where I was a writing fool. I was just writing because I had nothing else to do. I couldn't go anywhere really. So it's like, um, but the first project was with Charles Rosenay. Everybody knows him, and I'll say this: we went. I went on his England trip last August. It was wonderful. I'd love to go again. I don't think I'll go again immediately. Probably give it a few years. If Charles announces this next one's my last one, I'll probably go. But as long as he's like continuing to do it, well, I'll wait. Anyway, but we did the Turtles, not just Happy Together, the Turtles A to Z, AM Radio to Zappa. And that's available from Genius Publishing or on our own website, notjusthappytogether.com. So if you're a Monkees fan, and if you're listening to this, why aren't you? You should also be a Turtles fan, because there's a lot of crossover with Chip Douglas and a lot of the songwriters and everything else. So you think there's parallels with the Osmonds and the Monkees, parallels even more with Turtles and Monkees. So there we go. Then I did a 2-volume Mad history called what's it called? I can't even think what it's called. Unconditionally Mad. Part 1 and Part B. There you go. And wait for laughs now. And all right.
Sorry.
All right. And I never
Everybody
wanted
left.
all right, there we go. I never wanted to do the book because I figured, there's other Mad History books and everything like that. But then I found out the last Mad History book only went up to the early 90s. And so I said, I can talk to people and flesh out the rest of the story. So that's why it's 2 books. And the first book isn't a rehash of just whatever you've read everywhere else, because I did unique interviews. I really delved into the archives, and there's some interviews you've seen before if you've read Comics Journal or something in the past, but it's as thorough as I could probably make it without getting into like the minutia of what Dick DeBartolo had for lunch in 1965 or something like that. So, and then the last book that came out, well, obviously I did Cracked about a decade ago. Then I did Mad. Well, the next one would be Crazy, and have a co-author with this. He wanted to do the Crazy book because he did a Marvel book, and I wanted to do a Crazy book because I did the others. So, because I was working with him and he was really enthusiastic, I got to use articles that I had published in back issue over the years, and I made an index. He got to do reviews and everything. So we got it out in a record time, and it's called Crazy, the magazine that dared to be dumb. And the Mad books and the Crazy book are all through Bear Manor Media, which is my usual publisher on a lot of these things. And the next book I'm working with Mark Slade again, who worked with me on the Crazy book, on a book about Plop, which is a DC comic that tried to emulate Mad again. So I'm continuing on the humor vein, but I'm not abandoning other stuff. There's still a Monkees book in the works. I don't know where we're at on that. There's some legal thing holding it up, unfortunately. And
Are you going
working.
to are you going to do spoof?
Spoof? Well, I talk about spoof in this book, the Crazy book, because I actually delved back into earlier Marvel parody comics and magazines. So I talk about the original Crazy. I talk about Wild and Riot and Snafu, which was their earlier version of a magazine,
Right. There
and
was
and spoof, and another version of Crazy and Not Brandech and all that stuff. So
not Branagh. That was my favorite one.
yeah. And who knows, I might do another book down the road. Steve Thompson has approached me. He says, do you want to do a Nut Brand X book? And I go, maybe, but not yet. It's like, wait, I gotta get this Plop one done. Because I'm doing interviews for that. I just interviewed Dave Manak, who did a lot of artwork. I interviewed Sergio in December. Interviewed Monty Wolverton, who's Basil Wolverton's son, and who did the covers and things like that. So we're trying to get new interviews, considering, just like everybody else, they're all passing away. So you have to kind of work your way around to get as best you can, so there we are.
It's a lot of work, Mark. And that's great. And for those of you who may or may not know, if you go to my YouTube page, you're going to find a couple of podcast episodes in which I talk to Mark on Crazy I had both Marks on there. We talked about the Crazy Book, the magazine that dared to be dumb, and we talked about with Charles Rosenet on his Turtles book. So that's stuff you can research on YouTube to find if you want to get more information on those. Otherwise, check out Mark on Facebook and Daniel on Facebook and Fred on his website, and he's also around on Facebook and whatever.
Yes, I am.
And you get more information on what's happening with those guys. In the meantime, as for me, I'm just here totaling along here on this here podcast, and hopefully bring you a lot more stuff this year. And we're going up and down, and no, I got to make sure I use the right finger. Okay. Anyway.
Again with the finger.
The finger, where was the finger?
And anyway, so I please check out Ed Rising on YouTube for the podcast information. You can go on to Spotify, Apple Music, and so forth for Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast. You can check me out on Facebook and send me messages and so forth. Be happy to hear from you. Again, I want to thank everybody for listening and want to wish you all a very happy new year. And this is Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, a retro pop culture podcast, which is a retro podcast, and everything beats you in the heart if you keep it new, no, something along those lines. Anyway, I want to wish you all happy new year and have a nice day.
Crazy.
Good night, everyone.
Crazy for you. Bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
We're not closed yet.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
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 Don't forget to write. Goodbye.